Well, the governor's race in the deep blue state of New York is a lot tighter than Democrats expected. Polls show Republican Congressman Lee Zeldin gaining momentum against Democrat incumbent Kathy Hochul. Now, Zeldin has focused on New York's surge in crime, while Hochul, until this week, was calling it a manufactured crisis from Republicans. Hillary Clinton had this to say while campaigning for Hochul on Thursday. Roll tape.
You know, they don't care about keeping you safe. They want to keep you scared so that you can't think straight and you end up voting against your interests.
If Zeldin wins, he would be the first GOP governor of New York since George Pataki 20 years ago. Now, the former governor has been joining Zeldin on the campaign trail, and he joins me now. Governor, great to see you. Thank you for being here. Appreciate it. First of all, Hillary Clinton tried it to suggest that Republicans are the ones who are soft in crime, but Democrats are the ones in control with these crime surges, whether it's in cities, Democrat-run cities, or Democrat-run states.
Absolutely. All across the country, you see it. And by the way, she didn't point out that the assaulter was an illegal alien. And they have miserably not even tried to close the southern border. And criminals, drugs, violent gangs are crossing that southern border. One of the reasons why crime is out of control. But in New York, it's the worst it's been since I took office. And it's directly attributable to the failed policies of the left in treating criminals as victims instead of the innocent victims of crime as the people you have to protect.
And Hochul is kind of making a mess of things the way Hillary Clinton did the other night. I mean, talking about a conspiracy to talk about crime, that you're part of a conspiracy. And then during the debate that she had with Lee Zeldin, she was talking about why she didn't really know why crime was so important. I mean, she hasn't really been making a case that she could do a better job of what she has done for the past couple of years.
Basically, what she's saying is, I've already taken the action that's necessary to solve the problem. I don't think there's one person in New York State who believes that. Right. Every single day, there's another horrible incident. There was another one, a jogger on a popular trail on the west side of Manhattan, hit over the head, raped in the morning, and that person had been arrested 25 prior times. That's what it's like in New York today. You get arrested for a violent crime, you're often out on the street the same day. And we're seeing case after case where people commit violent crimes after having been caught and released dozens of times. It's because the law in Albany doesn't work. It has to change. Zeldin has said day one he's going to change it. Hochul is pretending that this is all a hoax. It's not. It's real, which is why for the first time in 20 years, a Republican has a real chance to win in New York State.
And, you know, related to the crime issue, and this is happening all over the country, it's not just New York, it's the quality of life issue. You saw when you were governor and when Mayor Giuliani was mayor of New York City, that those two are connected, that if you have a decline in the quality of life, if you have people using the sidewalk as a bedroom and a bathroom, you're going to have an increase in crime. You can't really separate those two issues, can you?
Not at all. I mean, the administration basically said it's okay on the subway to not pay. The turnstile jump is what it's called. They learned, oh, it's okay to break the law. So they break the law and assault people on the subways. It's just horrible, the violence that we see there. And we have a mentally ill homeless crisis. As you're mentioning, you walk the streets of New York, you can't help but see these people who are mentally ill and belong in secure treatment, threatening others and really diminishing the quality of life. So New York needs to change. I think the people across the political spectrum, not just Republicans and conservatives, but Democrats, know that New York needs to change, which is why Zeldin has a very real chance next week.
Well, what's frustrating to people like me who've lived here through those different generations of political leaders, I moved here in the early 1980s, so I saw a change. I saw how you could turn around that horrific crime rate we had in the late 1980s with the right policies, dealing with the quality of life issues, dealing with turnstile justice that let violent criminals out. So we know what works. But this particular administration, both governor and mayor and certainly prosecutors, are not doing what works.
That's exactly right. And that's the tragedy here. It's not like we don't have an example. You are correct. When I took office, New York was the most dangerous state in America. Think about it. Nobody realized that because, oh, New York is a safe place. You know, my kids are moving there from around the country. It was the most dangerous place in America when I took office. And we changed all the laws, over 100 different criminal justice laws. We changed the judges and upheld the law and supported the police. And now they did the exact opposite. They went back to the policies that they tried before when we were so dangerous, and we're becoming dangerous again. Yeah. How stupid. Forgive my
no, it is. There's no other word for it. Insane or stupid. I don't think there's any other word for it. Go ahead.
How stupid to do exactly what failed the last time. And as you see these horrible incidents of people being victims of violent crime, claim that somehow the changes you made have worked.
Governor,
and one of the things
I'm sorry, but we're running out of time. I just have to ask one final question. There is an obstacle, and one of those obstacles is that a lot of the great exodus of New Yorkers who went down to Florida because they couldn't take it anymore. The high crime, the high tax rate, the high regulations. That means fewer votes of people that might be sympathetic to Zeldin. Is that going to be a factor in this election? Quickly.
It is a factor. I mean, New York is #1 in the country of losing population to other states. And a lot of them are people who were just disgusted with the crime and the taxes and left. But I still think there are enough New Yorkers who understand that it's the Albany that is failing the people, not the people failing, so that Zeldin has a very real chance.
Governor George Pataki, great to see you, Governor. Thank you very much. Appreciate you coming in. My thanks to the former governor. Don't go anywhere. More Wall Street right after this.